Fate Type Redline is a manga written and illustrated by Ryouji Hirano that might end up becoming my favorite of the Fate series when all is said and done. But as I'm doing this to try and get you to read the manga, you don't need to worry about me spoiling anything outside what you would find in the early chapters. Also, for you Fate newbies out there, this is a standalone experience, having no direct connection to any other Fate story, so you don't have to worry about any of that. Before we get to it, I will explain the basics of the Fate series, so that those unfamiliar with it, or who need a little refreshing, can keep up. If you're a series veteran, feel free to jump ahead to the story section through the timestamps. So at its most basic, the Fate series is about 7 Magas fighting in a battle royale called the Holy Grail War. To do so, they summon heroic spirits, people from history and myth, almost always with slight twists to them. Each of the summoned heroes belongs to one of 7 classes with pretty self-explanatory names, like Saber, Archer, Assassin, and so on. Whichever Master-Servant pair wins gets their wish granted by the Grail, although usually it doesn't go that smoothly. And that is literally all you need to know about the Fate series to fully enjoy Fate Type Redline. Kanata Akagi is the descendant of a Magus family who decided not to pursue magecraft and live a normal life instead. But some complications led him to accidentally activate an hourglass that took him 75 years to pass during the Imperial Holy Grail War, which overlaps with World War II. When he goes back in time, he ends up in the middle of a battle between a servant and a girl named Tsumoko Fujimiya, who was supposed to serve as the representative for the church in the Holy Grail War. While in the original timeline she would have been the master of the Saber Servant, he ends up taking her place in the war when he summons Saber by accident. Together, they must now try to win this Holy Grail War by defeating all other masters in order to wish for the end of the World War. And you know what? That's not all, because it turns out the girl whose place he took in the war isn't some random stranger, but his own grandma. While at first the World War II setting and time travel might seem like they are tacked on for no reason, believe me when I say this war isn't just fought with servants and magas. There are several factions at play here: the Imperial Japanese Army and German Third Reich, which despite being allies we get this vibe that it could go wrong at any time. The Church, despite not being directly involved, does have its own interests, and there are independent magas as well, just like our main characters. And these factions, as well as the intertwining of the Holy Grail War with World War II, isn't just a gimmick. They are woven together, and it makes perfect sense as to why the imperialistic Germans and Japanese want the Grail, as it could possibly grant their wish for world domination. Also, these aren't homogeneous factions. You have a bunch of characters with different end goals in each of them, which leads to a lot of political maneuvering, psychological warfare, the use of propaganda, assassination attempts, and so on. All of this lends itself perfectly to how the Fate series likes to blend history, myth, and add their own special sauce to it. Which, to be honest, usually means taking old men from legend and turning them into cute girls. Not that you will find me complaining about it. Our 3 main leads are, as I said before, Kanata Akagi, who as any regular person would tends to panic whenever people get killed in front of him, his grandmother, who serves as a sort of guide to the main character in the war, and Saber, whose unfazed reaction towards killing creates a really interesting dynamic between her and Kanata. I don't want to reveal the other participants, as it's something best experienced when you read it yourself, but I will say that the main antagonistic force of this story is well deserving of the nickname Devil King of the Sixth Heaven, and stands among the best foes in the Fate series. Now, while the art isn't as polished as manga like Vagabond or Berserk, it's done in a way that manages to represent the brutality of war and death, while not falling into pure edge territory. And the sometimes messy aspect to it only adds to the charm of the art style. I'm also a big fan of the way emotion is conveyed through these twisted facial expressions, the eyes in particular making the emotions of the characters incredibly clear. Paneling wise, it isn't anything special, but at the same time it's a manga that's not afraid to take as many panels as it needs for you to understand what's going on. For example, there is a scene where a character is throwing an object to another, and we get 9 whole panels just so that we clearly understand all that is going on. Overall, Fate Type Redline is one of the best explorations of war that I've seen, and this really caught me off guard. I love the Fate franchise, but this isn't like any other in the series. If I had to compare it with something in the franchise, it would have to be Fate Zero, but even with a similar dark tone, both the execution and what they choose to focus on are entirely different. While Fate Zero is an exploration of flawed idealism, Redline dwells more in the personal side of how people are affected by war itself. The story grapples with the mental strain of having to kill and of having others try and take your life. And to counter a complaint I've heard that this story would be better if his grandmother was a protagonist and thus removing the time travel element, I would disagree with that. While Fujimiya would probably be the closest I have to a favorite character in the manga so far, the dynamic between Kanata and Saber is what makes this as good as it is. A person far removed from war and one who never knew anything else. Someone who would struggle with witnessing the death of even those that try to kill them, and one who is so indifferent to the act of killing that no matter how much blood covers them, they stay unwavering. Death matters in the story, and when nameless goons are killed, we get to see the effect it has on our main character. We get to see how soldiers are being manipulated into giving their life for a cause they might not even understand, and this isn't done in a superficial manner either. It's not some self-righteous story portraying everyone in the wrong side of the war as this caricature of pure evil. We get to see some of the villains grapple with the morality of their actions, while others keep descending further and further into inhumanity. For the longest time, the Fate series has had a proven formula, based around blending history and myth, with some creative liberties of course, and Redline feels like an extension of that formula to more than just the servants. By tying the Holy Grail War to World War II, they allow themselves to play around with historical events themselves and incorporate them into the narrative. And while the time travel aspect to it might appear to be too much for some, I'd say it's more than welcome, as it allows us to insert a character who's never had to worry about war into the driver's seat. I believe this was the best way for this story to explore the themes of war and the suffering it causes on both those whose lives are lost and those who are left standing. I really hope you go and give this manga a chance, and I'd also like to thank Abiisu for making this amazing thumbnail for me. I will leave his links in the description. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like since it's let me know you want to see more videos like this, and subscribe so you don't miss when I drop a video. Without further ado, I'm Hellmouth, signing out.